BC load letter? What's that supposed to mean? Wow, welcome back to the room. Let's go fast. Old Big Mech here, and that's right. I have learned to play virtual skee ball. Warhammer. You know what I mean? Let's get into it. Yeah, today was actually a really exciting thing because I played Warhammer with my buddy Warboss Dan, who got me into Warhammer for the first time in like 23 years. We had figured out 22 years, something like that. Even though we live literally on opposite sides of a continent from one another. I am up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and Warboss Dan is down in the Southeast, basically on the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm basically on the Pacific Ocean. So you kind of can't get much further apart, but we were able to play, not so much a whole game, but at least a whole turn of Warhammer 40,000 for real together, and that was really, really cool. Now, it took some work. Those of you that are a little gray-beardy, like old Big Mech here, I'm probably going to say a lot of words right now that don't mean a whole lot to you, and they didn't to me. But trust me, it's worth going slow and figuring it out. Now, this is not a tutorial on how to do this. There are a lot of content creators that are much, much better at that explain every little step of doing this. And there's more than one way to do it, which I think is one of the most confusing things about it. So what exactly are we talking about? We're talking about playing Warhammer 40,000 virtually. And I don't mean like, oh, are you going to play Space Marine together or Shooters Blood Thief? No, I mean like we're playing the tabletop game, 10th edition, Warhammer 40K, with miniatures on this thing called Tabletop Simulator. Now, in order to get Tabletop Simulator, again, it's going to get a little dicey. So if you're older, just follow along. Trust me, it's not as hard as it looks, and you can do it. All right, let's get into it. All right, first of all, you're going to need this thing called Steam. Steam is an online marketplace slash running engine for video games, okay? And you can go in here and you can buy and play literally hundreds of video games. It's really, really cool. Now, Steam has a lot of games that, you can play on other things. Steam also has a lot of games that are only on Steam. And there is this Steam Deck thing, which is sort of like a pseudo Nintendo Switch. I'm not sure. Again, I'm old. If I get any of this wrong, you can yell at me for it in the comments. I'm trying to help other graybeards. But anyways, you go to steam.com, you download the Steam app thing, you set up an account, no big deal, it's all free, yada, yada, yada. What you want to do is get this game right here called Tabletop Simulator. Now, Tabletop Simulator is an older game, and it's really cool because it literally simulates all tabletop games. What do I mean by that? So if you go to the page for the actual game, it gives you a couple little video rundowns, but basically you can play actual, literal tabletop games. There is chess, and there's dominoes, and there's card games, and there are miniature games and RPG games, and there's a lot of different content that other people make for it called mods. So once you get the game, then you need to get the mods. And you get those in this little spot over here called Workshop. You pop that open and it gives you different things that you can buy or download. You quote unquote subscribe to them through these modifications. And that's where you are going to get the things that you actually need for yours. Now, here's where it gets tricky and where I had the hardest time with. Because again, like I said, there are numerous content creators that have done how-to videos on how to play Warhammer 40K on Tabletop Simulator. Well, the thing is, they're all different because there are multiple different ways to actually play this. There are literally at least a half a dozen different map-based things to play, as well as a couple different ways to make armies. Now, the way that we finally figured out was to use Force Org. So what you have to do is you have to go into the workshop, you have to look up Force Org and download this, and then you can open that up inside Tabletop Simulator. That will allow you to actually put together your army From there, you then copy that object and you go into one of the map bases, open that up, and then you can place the object onto the table, and it literally physically places an army on the table. So rather than keep explaining, I'm going to actually show you. So first, open up Tabletop Simulator. Once you're actually in there, this is what it's going to look like, and you can either join or create games. And, well, again, they're kind of interesting because it all depends on what it is you have downloaded. So, for example, I can go into here into create my single-player game, and here's a bunch of different games that are already included. So Chinese checkers, card bots, mahjong, right? And then there's DLC. There's downloadable content. Some of it is free. A lot of it you have to pay for. But these are whole games that independent developers have made specifically for Tabletop Simulator, which is really cool. And then you have, as you see here, the Warhammer ones. Now, again, we're going to start off with Force Org. So you pop that open, and then it's going to populate this. Now, the first time you do it, it's going to take a while. But once you've downloaded it once, it becomes a lot faster. Then you're going to go and select your army. And yeah, I mean, this is literally a 3D environment that you scooch the thing around in and you zoom in and out to see what's going on, side to side, right? Okay, so for example, we are Orky, so there's no question what we are here for. We want to go to Orcs, and you click Load Models. And that's actually going to, again, this is going to take a hot minute. It's got to load 731 different orc models in order to populate this game board. Now, as you see, these are like 3D scans of actual 40K models, which is really cool. The scale on some of them is a little off, but most of them are all right. The base size is pretty good. I found the scale to be off on like the truck. The truck is much smaller than the real truck is. And then things with lots of overhangs, like the kill rig and hunter rig, can kind of, I don't know, be a little wonky, but it's better than most. All right, let's see. Actually, the ones over here are pretty good. So like this Gorkanaut, you can move them over here, versus this Gorkanaut. You can see the size difference on those two, right? Okay, but yeah, like it's literally 3D. Now, here's where it starts getting confusing. You see this thing here that says Yellow Scribe? You kind of need that. And here's where, again, we got bogged down, because this isn't just like a one-click thing that you do or a one-item thing. So what we had to do was go build an army on a website in a completely different program. So I went to that website and I clicked the army builder and I built my actual 1,000-point army list. I was then able to export that list into Yellow Scribe. It gave me this cool little code. You typed in that code within a certain amount of time into your Force Org, and then the actual army list that you had made would populate. Now, what would populate is not the figures. It was literally the data sheets. So it would go unit of boys, Warboss, truck, right? You then have to click each unit data card one at a time, and then click the corresponding model on the board that you see there to tie them together, okay? Once you've tied them all together, then you could take that whole army and out of that spawn zone and copy it, and that's where you can bring it over to the map thing. So as you can see, we've already had to download and run Steam. We've already had to download and run Force Org Tabletop Simulator within Steam, and then Force Org within Tabletop Simulator, right? So we're 3 layers deep into this onion. But in order to use Force Org, we had to go back out to a website to build a army list and then export it to Yellow Scribe, and then take the Yellow Scribe code and put it back into Force Org. And then in Force Org, we were able to take our Yellow Scribe list and assign all our models to it. Are you following? Okay. I wasn't. It took hours to figure this out. Watching, again, multiple content creators. Again, the problem is they're all different. So if you're going to do this, pick the content creator that like you're going to follow for it and actually do their version 100% of the way through until you can actually play the game. And then if you decide that that's not the particular mod for you, then you can go like try another one. I watched like 3 or 4 different ones thinking that it was all like the same one process or the same programs. And as you saw, I downloaded 2 completely different 10th edition 40K arenas. And those were far from the only ones. And far from the only ones that were 10th. There were also multiple ones for 9th and multiple ones for 8th. And, you know, I bet you could probably play any edition you want on here, which we'll get into in a bit. Okay, so now I have my army here in the staging zone, right? You can see I've got a Gorkanaut and a Stompa and 3 Killicans and a Beast Boss and a Squigosaur and Gazgul and a mech. I know, it's a terrible army. You can then select the whole thing, and then you get to copy it. I digress, I was wrong. You want to click Save Object. There we go. And then in your root folder, you're going to have this whole army. Okay, we're going to call it Army 1. So now we've got Army 1 on there. And then we're going to back out of this back to the main menu of Tabletop Simulator. Okay, so we've only used one part of Tabletop Simulator so far. Now we can go back in, do our game again, and pull up our actual map base. And then we are going to load that, and that's going to bring up the actual gameplay arena. And as you can see, again, it takes a hot minute, and it is absolutely ginormous. This is an entire board. We're the red team. Come on, the red ones go faster. But you have an entire board here, and within the board, there are a million different things. But first of all, what we want to do is now right-click and, got to load that thing. Hold on, give me a sec. All right, I figured it out. Okay, click Objects, and then Saved Objects, and then bam! There's our Army 1. Flap! We have an army on the table! Now, you can do that like a couple of times. In fact, a zillion times. But we only need one. So, we got it. Now, you can like change your battlefield size and all that good stuff. And yeah. So, now you've got your army. Now you've got your play space. Now you got to actually play the game. And here's where it gets even crazier. So, in here, you can load all the different cards. They have Leviathan. They have Pariah Nexus. So you can click that. You can do a randomize. You can select the missions. You can pull out your secondaries and everything. And you can see here's all the little tokens for things that you need to remember. Player clocks, your different victory points, your deployment zones. There's even little quickie linky things here to actual rules companions, which is super awesome. It's like a PDF natively within here, so you're picking it up and moving it just like a real battlefield. And now therein lies the rub. This is literally a tabletop simulator. So when you go to move things while you play the game, you are literally clicking it and moving it. And as you can see here, you can see how it's measuring. There's 3.5 inches, 4 inches, right? Let's see, this guy's gonna move 6 inches this way, and then you let him go. And that's how you move. You literally physically pick them up and move them. And then while you're moving them, you could even rotate them around to change which direction they're looking. Yeah, and all sorts of stuff. You can even flip them upside down, flip them right side up. All sorts of other funny things. What that means, though, is it makes it a little clunky and awkward to move things around, especially when you can't really kind of snap them back to where they were, or at least not any way we've been able to figure out yet. So yeah, actually moving these things around the battlefield is a bit of a faff. Now, getting to here, again, took a long time, but once we actually got there and got it figured out, it wasn't that bad. It was just kind of getting through all these different layers and realizing that we needed multiple things of software within software in order to actually do it. Now, one thing that we couldn't quite figure out was I had built an army on Force.org, and Warboss Stan had built an army on Force.org, and we couldn't figure out how to get the two armies onto the same multiplayer board. And then we figured out I could just send Warboss Stan my code for the little, what was it, yellow scribe thing, and he was able to load the list and then put all the models on it and make the object himself. And so my army actually exists in his gaming system, which is why we had to create a new army right now, right? So multiplayer could get a little clunky, but I mean, again, we're a couple of really old graybeards, right? The last time we played a game together, it was still 3rd edition. And, you know, now we were able to play a game of 10th, 3,500 miles away from each other. And that was such a cool experience. despite everything with 10th edition, despite everything with all of the faffing about to get this done, the object of moving the models around the board and rolling dice and seeing what happened and talking about it was super, super fun. Now, in order to play this game, you need to be able to communicate with one another. You can't really do that over Tabletop Simulator, so you're definitely going to need more than just your computer and an internet connection. We ended up using our cell phones, doing a video call over the Discord server, which, again, our Discord is free. Click in the link down below if you haven't already done so. It's fantastic there, especially if you like kit bashing things. The other thing is, because we were using our phones to communicate, we couldn't use like any of the official GW apps for rules or anything, and because there's only like certain supplements and things within the actual Tabletop Simulator game area, what you're gonna need is a good old-fashioned physical copy of rules. Obviously, with 10th edition, that's hard because all the rules in here are garbage. They're not good anymore because they've been updated so many times. So, I would greatly suggest having like maybe a, I don't know, a printout of all your different PDFs, or have like a super cheap tablet that you've loaded all your PDFs onto for the rules, so you can do that, or some other way of communicating. Maybe you have something better than just a typical school laptop and can actually like, because I think you can like video chat over Steam, because again, you're running Tabletop Simulator on Steam, so maybe you can do that, and then you can still have your phone available for the rules. I don't know, we'll get there. It took us like 6 hours to do one turn, including all the faffing about to get there. Now, once we've done that, the second turn should be a lot faster, just because we don't have to learn all this stuff, but also you're kind of getting the hang of moving the units around, figuring out how to group the models together and move the whole unit as one unit instead of like each individual guy, and other things like that. So it's worth the rub, especially if you have friends that you want to play with that live really far away. Now, would I suggest this to everybody? No, not a chance. Full disclosure, playing 40K on Tabletop Simulator is almost a hobby completely unto itself, like how 3D printing is a hobby completely unto itself. If you are here because you like physical models and kit bashing minis and painting up armies and having an army arrayed before you, there's not going to be a lot here for you, okay? You can't change the minis, you can't paint the minis virtually inside the game. It's literally a way to play the game. Not even necessarily competitively, although you can play competitively. It's just a way to play the game with somebody that's not right in front of you. So again, if you're not into the gameplay part, if you're not into computers and like going through all of these different steps and being able to figure these things out, it's just going to be a whole another hobby. Now, that being said, if you live somewhere where the 40K scene is just dead and you really want to play games, this is a good option, because not only can you play with your friends, there was a bunch of like public multiplayers going. So people just sitting around going, man, I really want to play a game of 40K. They would start up a multiplayer that was open and you could just go and join. Again, I don't know how that works with bringing your army on board. Don't ask me, I'm an old graybeard, but there is a way to do it. So, you know, there are certain use circumstances where this could be for you. It's just not for everybody. Now, if you want to do a Warhammer experience with a friend, but not necessarily have it be the literal tabletop experience, there are a number of other Warhammer games that you could do that with. I have personally played Shooters Blood and Teeth with a couple of different friends of mine and my brother. In fact, we played the whole game through and beat it together via Steam, and that was a whole ton of fun. So there's definitely other ways that you can play Warhammer without it being the tabletop game. But if you are looking for the tabletop game, there is an option for it. Now, we do have a Tabletop Simulator section in our Discord. It's pretty dead, to be honest with you, because I just started it. But as we get people on board that are more familiar with this, hopefully they'll come in and help out the newbies like myself to figure these things out and play it a little more. Because, again, it was really fun to reconnect with a really good friend of mine, the person that actually got me into Warhammer, like, big time, you know, and played that game. And that just, you know, all those great feelings and chemicals and synapse firings, all that good stuff came flooding back, and that was really, really cool. So for me, it was worth the rub. It was worth all of the pain in order to be able to have that experience, at least today. But yeah, only you can decide if it is right for you. But go ahead and check it out. Give it a whirly gig and see what you think, if it's your thing. Now, again, if you are super big into this thing, or if I've said some wrong things or just don't know how to do things, by all means, put them in the comments below. We want to help people out, not tear people down. Full disclosure, I'm terrible at this. It took me 6 hours to get here. I'm a really old graybeard. Okay, when I started with computers, it was on a Commodore 64. I had extensive DOS before Windows 3.1 came out. My floppy disks were actually floppy. Yeah, old. We used to have to unplug the telephone to plug in the computer so that it would go ding ding dong dong beep beep so that you could download a picture one line of pixels at a time. That's the era I'm from, okay? So this stuff is a little bit new to me and might be a little bit beyond my current technical understanding. So yeah, if you've got better things, absolutely get them down in the comments or pop on over to our Discord and help people out, because this is a really cool option. And if I can figure it out, you can probably figure it out, right? Again, I'm an old Big Mac. I am not the greatest with this kind of thing, especially these newer cloud-based things and having to have layers upon layers upon layers of programs within programs within programs within programs. That is not my particular onion. So, again, if I can do it, you can do it. All right? If you want to do it. Only if you want to do it. That's going to do it for this video. It was a whole lot of fun to do some more hammering today. I'm looking forward to doing some more, hopefully soon in person. But yeah, coming up, we've got the championship bracket of our bracket challenge. If you haven't filled out your bracket yet, and you're watching this when this is new, you definitely need to. One, it's completely free to enter. So why would you not just fill a bracket out? Because it's free, and if you win, you get to win absolutely anything you want from theredonesgofaster.com. You can pick a Red Squig shirt, or a hoodie, or a baseball cap, or Red Squig the water bottle, which is metal. And very, very nice. The Gruts all fought each other over this until I bonked all of them on the head with it. Now it's mine. I should still buy 4 more. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. Really appreciate you all checking it out. And let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. And until then, Wagon!